This is only about 12 years ago. I'm in Boulder, walking my dog about midnight in a neighborhood. Nobody else is awake. Everything is dead. But I keep spinning my head around because I keep thinking I'm not alone out here, that something is going on. And I keep doing that for probably like 10 minutes. And I finally say, you're being stupid. You're being paranoid. You just watch a scary movie. That's probably what's in your head. Finally, I had to look behind me. And when I look behind me, there's some dude about my height, really pale, walking in my footsteps, like his feet are with mine, like that Breakfast Club dance they do, like that. And I remember I jerked forward, and that's where that memory shuts off. It just like, psh. Some stories, though, they're meat grinders. Moments after you stumble outside to what you think is going to be the arms of the police, the lenses of the reporters, the arms of your aunt and uncle just getting back to town, moments after you leave this gym floor, as if you can ever leave a scene like this behind you, an eyelid will peel back all at once, an index finger will twitch, and now it's starting all over. But it doesn't have to. Granted, a chest pierced with 45 slug after 45 slug isn't quite enough to get the job done. Evil doesn't have a heart to blast through. But there are bodily mechanics that even the most wronged-driven slasher can't get around. Try this. While your slasher's down, instead of stumbling away to the light, step back into the darkness for a few moments more. Kneel down over this body. Kneel down with a blade or with teeth, with whatever's handy. Remove the right boot. Start with the Achilles tendon. You might have to saw a little, but try leaning down hard on the ball of the foot to stretch that tendon even wider. You'll have to scream while doing this. There's no other way. The sound of that tendon rupturing, though, you'll want to hold your breath for that, to hear it, to feel its quick release, its wet snap. Now take the left boot off and repeat. If you only take away one of your slasher's ankles, then all you've done is given it a scary limp, which, in the peculiar algebra of horror, will only serve to make it somehow faster. Both ankles, though, and its slashing radius is significantly reduced. If your slasher doesn't wake from that second tendon slithering back up into its dark calf, then you may want to do whatever damage you can to the patellar tendon as well. This is directly below the kneecap. And those two rubber bands behind the knee that feel like steel, they're not. Feel them now so you know what I'm talking about. Scissors will get that job done. If you're in a high school, check the closest teacher's desk. Right knee, left knee. Snip, snip, snip. I didn't start hunting deer and elk until I was 12, I think it was. Went up to the reservation with my dad, got my first deer, first elk as well, a bull elk. And I knew I was going hunting, and so I went to the flea market in Texas before that and bought a big old Rambo knife. You remember those? They had the teeth on the back and like a compass. And I thought I was king of the world. And so we knocked down this bull elk. My dad and my uncle get out the saw and the knife. They're gonna dress this elk out for us. And me and my cousin Ladale, he's a year younger than me, we said, hey, we can do it. We're gonna dress this elk. And they said, guys, this is a bull elk. This is too big for y'all. And we said, we can do it. We can do it. And they said, sure. So they leaned back against the truck and let us go at it. And all we had was my big Rambo knife. And we were able to get the belly slit. We pulled out some of the guts. I'm sure we burst them and made a big mess. But when you dress out an elk, you have to split the sternum. And to get at the lungs and pull all that stuff out, you go up there and cut the windpipe and pull it all out. And usually you have a saw for that sternum. And we tried using the saw on the back of my Rambo knife, but it turns out it was not that good of a saw, And so what we decided finally with our brilliant 11 and 12-year-old planning minds was we rolled the elk onto his back. So I sat on the elk and he backed off about 20 feet with my knife. And he's trying to aim between my fingers, to get that sternum, to split it. And we nodded and said, all right, you ready? We're ready. And he just dives, leading with that knife. Of course he missed, and I lost a big chunk of my finger, and I spent the rest of the day in the emergency room. But there was already so much blood. It was elk blood, but then there was so much of my blood too. I lost quite a lot. To tell you the truth, I have not been in the field after elk since 2019. Yeah, I think it's 2019. And that was the year before Only Good Indians came out, and I'm always kind of nervous now. Like, do the elk have something against me? You know, are they gonna walk me into a dead end little canyon and leave me there? I don't know. Good Indians. I did make the elk kind of. They are the killer, but they're also something different, you know. But I feel like I did that because I felt like I had to repay all these elk I had shot before, if that makes sense, you know. After this, you can go higher on this body to satisfy your rage, yes, to try to extract whatever justice you can from the moment. You can get involved with the elbows and fingers, even the shoulders if you understand where to apply pressure with ball joints. But understand that this is exactly what the slasher is waiting for. If you could see behind that mask, you'd know that one eye is already open. And while slashers don't feel pain like we do, still, it knows its legs are no longer its own. It knows it's gonna have to finish this with its hands on whatever blade it can grub up from the bloody mess on the floor. And there's always a blade. It's vital that you understand this. So stay at knee level on this slasher and then back away, because you know it's gonna sit up from the hips faster and quieter than you'd think it could manage. If it happens to get your hair, then you still got your blade, don't you? Hair grows back, heads don't. All of me is in all of my work. Every one of my protagonists is me with a different hairstyle, me in a different decade, me if I wore skirts. That's the only way I know to do it. And I always think it's a failure of imagination, but I always feel like I'm not making stuff up. I'm just disguising things that I've felt and experienced, you know? But I never know where a novel's going. I never feel in control. The way I think about writing novels specifically is I stand around in my head in a dark space, and it's like in Douglas Adams, what are those beasts called that are interdimensional? They're the very normal beasts or whatever. And I feel like I'm standing there and they're all rushing past in the darkness, and every once in a while, one of them runs close enough to me that I can jump and grab onto its tail and hold on through all the fences it bashes through all the roads it goes across. And I hold on for 6 or 8 or 10 weeks, and then I let go and I've got a novel. I'm writing a novel right now. I feel like I have no idea how it's going to come together. Like, how am I ever going to make this work? But I only write novels that I think are broken at the level of conception. And I think I just do that to set myself up to be some sort of hero to myself, not to anybody else. But I think if I can somehow pull a card out of my hat that will make these disparate parts gel together, then wow, that's a coup, you know? I can't imagine ever writing a novel that I think I can write, you know? And I've written some stupid novels, and I do them, I take those flyers because they're bad ideas. Like, not for nothing, a second person small town noir, you know? I think that's not a good idea, but that's one of my favorite things I've done. Or Flesh Boy, about a kid working the window of his father's drive-through urinal. You know, that's an out there premise. And that one has a huge emotional punch for me at the end. And like, I don't know, Last Final Girl, Zombie Bake Off, those are both hybrid screenplay prose formats or delivery methods. Those should not work. That should probably just be a vomit draft that you then go back and touch up. But for me, it was the form this story needed to be in, finally. And yeah, I can't imagine having to write a novel I know I could write. That just sounds completely unfun. Writing is not bad. People always want to make writing be work and be torture and be such a drag on their life. And it's never been that for me. Writing is, it's just recess. To me, writing is recess. It's the teacher said, all right, it's finally 10:45. Y'all get out of here and go play. And it's my happy place, you know? It's where I go for satisfaction and escape. If you watch that film, Panero, he talks about how writers, we're pearl divers. We go out 50 feet in our boat from shore. We dive down to the oyster bed. We come up with a pearl. We bring it back. We give it to the people on shore. And they're like, yes, this is a beautiful pearl. Thank you for this pearl. We need this. Can you get us another? So you go out 75 feet. Can you get us another? And so you go out 200 feet. Your eardrums are popping. Your nose is bleeding. Your lungs are hurting. You come up with a pearl. You bring it back. You give it to them, and they say, can we please have another? So you go out deeper and you dive deeper and you keep hurting yourself more and more for these pearls. And I do feel like that's what writing is. I do think of writing as recess, as playtime, but there is an accrual of damage that it does to you too, I think. Now you can walk out into those end credits, but don't expect applause. You graduated, see? It was that kind of ceremony. You're no longer the timid bookworm you were once upon a lifetime. You faced things most in your community have never even dreamed of. You faced things that would have killed them in the opening scene. The girl you used to be, she's dead. You stand taller now, at least for the moment. What you do next, it's walk stone-faced through that crowd, past your aunt and uncle, past the one deputy who somehow survived, past the paramedics trying to lure you into their ambulance, trying to pull you back into decent society. Walk through them all, final girl, and keep that blade. The sequel's already starting. Some people say that horror is a roller coaster ride where you've got the bar pulled down, and so you're experiencing sensations that should feel like death, but you're not actually going to get hurt. You get the thrill without the danger. However, I think there's actual real dangers in horror, in engaging horror stories. And that real danger is that you're going to see or experience or identify with something that either recodes the way you think, or it's going to open a door that you had successfully shut when you were 9 years old, and you're going to be a different person coming out of this horror experience. That's what I'm afraid of. The legitimate, real, palpable danger of horror is that, as you should with art, you're going to come out of it, or I'm going to come out of it, a different person, a worse person. And then 2 months later, I'm dragging bagfuls of body parts through alleys and trying to get rid of them.
Do I walk around thinking of imminent doom? Kinda, yeah. I do. Like, I would more describe it as like worst case scenarios. My head is always spinning worst case scenarios. I just can't help it. And these could be like very small, like low grade sort of worst case scenarios. Like, oh, something that could, it could possibly go wrong in like way X, but it's very not likely. And I try to pull myself out of there, and I think writing helps me do that sometimes.